still time to join us for the rest of the convention. Again, because you could take a look at what we're doing already, and if it looks interesting to you, then fair enough. Come and join us for the rest of the convention. It should be great. And if you sign up for the recorded tier, you can have access to all the recordings in case you can't make all the sessions, and any extra content that we provide. So I'll give an introduction to the show here, and then we'll dive into some of these sample lectures, and we'll take it from there, see if there's any questions or comments. So this is Piano Tech Radio Hour. This is a weekly event where we invite, you, the really finest folks in the piano industry. We also invite people to come speak with us on occasion, experts, piano experts, piano dealers, sometimes musicians, instrument building and repair experts, and things like this, just to give us some extra content and keep us really at the edge of what's going on. This is brought to you by Piano Technicians Masterclasses, giving you cutting-edge instruction from piano industry masters without leaving your home. And you can find out more at pianotechniciansmasterclass.com. You can also go there. We've got a link set up. So there's a little icon for the convention. If you click on that, it'll bring you over to the convention page. You can sign up to attend some other sessions or grab the recordings. So, yesterday we started out the convention with Bill Monroe. And what I'm going to do today is I just took a little bit of time to kind of put some rapid cut like samplers of each of the convention lectures. So it might not follow, point to point to point, but you'll get a sense of kind of what was in the content. And so we'll sort of skip around a little bit and you get little samples of what's going on. But, a quick summary of Bill's presentation, I thought it was, incredible. He does rebuilding in his shop in Wisconsin, and he does all sorts of pianos from, fine grand pianos to kind of antique family heirloom uprights. And the thing about Bill is he just has, he's obsessively detailed. He does a really incredible job. And what he showed us on Thursday was really taking this kind of older 100+ year instrument and basically making it look like it was a new thing. And beyond that, I would argue a work of art. I mean, a beautiful instrument. And he showed us kind of step by step going through the process, from bringing the piano in, and it looks like it's on its last legs, to going through every little detail and piece of it, picking it apart and refurbishing it, putting it back together until, you see the final piano and you think, wow, that you believe that it was made historically because of the sort of quality and the beauty that it has. And at the same time, it sort of looks like it's brand new. So what I'll do right now is I'll find that lecture here in my file folders, and we'll play a little bit of that, and then we'll take that from there. So here's Bill Monroe. And these videos, I made them a little bit lower resolution just so we could play them really easily in this. So the final versions of these will be a little bit higher quality as well. All right, so give me a second. I'll share my screen. And we'll go take a look. And again, this will just cut through some various parts of the lecture. So it won't necessarily make logical sense, but you'll get a little bit of sampling of all the type of things that Bill covered throughout the lecture. And then I'll come back and we'll have a chat and we'll check out another sample. Let me just make sure I'm sharing my sound. Yes, that's looking good. Okay, awesome. All right, I hope you find this useful.
So the piano in question for today that we're going to be going through the restoration process of was a 1914 A.B. Chase, 54-inch upright, and this was a complete rebuilding restoration project. So the first thing that I try and do when I've got an instrument coming in for any sort of major work is make a photographic record of the instrument when it comes in, both for posterity as well as for reminders for me when I'm putting things back together. This is one of the remaining old casters. It was kind of a unique design that A.B. Chase had, but they clearly had failed. I like to call it the piano equivalent of plantar fasciitis. makes moving around on its feet a little more difficult. So replace these casters with a new set of the double-wheeled Darnells, and then continuing to open things up. Action comes out, goes on the bench, and actually in this case, the action is going to be set aside for a while. Typically what I'll do is the order of operations is going to be starting with the main structural elements of the instrument, belly components, whatever repairs we need to be doing to soundboard, bridges, pin block, that kind of stuff. Also, and again, the same concept here with hardware. I like to use the old stuff, partly because it's better quality and for authenticity, but also because it can be really hard to find some of the more or the less common hardware. Same with all of the rest of the main plate legs and hardware going around the rest of the instrument. Always try and preserve that if I can. And again, the deburring wheel, if you don't have one and you do any measure of shop work, grab yourself a deburring wheel. They really are phenomenal tools that make quick work of this type of task. Yeah, so bridge pin's coming out. Cap's ready to be resurfaced. And my weapon of choice for resurfacing is a hand plane. The one you see in the photo, that's an old Stanley 60.5, turn of the century, 1900s. It's a lovely plane. It was well preserved. This is the top nut, so the area right above all the base bridge pins. They also needed that same treatment that we did on the bridges, but nothing terribly new there. After all that work, coffee break. It's one of the advantages of having my shop at home. I get to wander in and grab a cup of coffee. All right, things starting to go back together here, and yeah, we're ready for the action, and at this point too, the piano is going to be sent out for refinishing, and we'll turn our attention to the action. Finish it off with a humidity control system. And please, folks, if you put these systems in, which I think you should in everything, especially in my climate, they're lifesavers. Make it clean. Again, another place where, in my opinion, doing artisan level work matters. All right, and then put them in the piano. There you go. There's your buttons. Beautifully done. There's the new decal and the case.
Okay, so that was about 3 minutes of a full hour. I think we even went over with questions and things like that, lecture. And you might not get a sense of from there, but Bill really went into almost every detail. He had photos for each little piece of the process. Explained tools that he used, explained his thought process, and also, you just get the perspective of someone who likes to do a really incredible job on his work. And so, he's definitely going through a lot of details that other people might say, you know what, why do I need to do that? Little things like, really cleaning out the interior of the case really nicely. And the pedal rods and things like that, cleaning them up, sanding them, maybe putting a coat of like some sort of sealant paint on the interior surface of the knee board or something like that, just to make everything clean and neat and new and beautiful. And, he mentioned a piano like this, its value in terms of resale value, might maybe get to like $10,000. It's an A.B. Chase piano. But at the same time, he's got clients that, are interested in having, a beautiful instrument that's an heirloom family instrument, and they're willing to invest enough that he can put the time and energy into doing the, really fine, detailed job that he really likes to do. And he's very upfront with the client. He's just say, hey, listen, let's be really clear. This is probably how much this is going to cost to get this done. It's not going to have necessarily a liquid resale value on the general piano market. But if you're going to enjoy it and you're going to find this worth it, let's go for it. And he's talked about it in other lectures, how he just, he proposes works to clients, explains the details, very upfront with them. And if they'd like to move forward with it, then he gets some work out of it. And he said he gets quite a bit of great work to do. So let me move on to the next lecture that we had. That one was with Chris Brown. So it was, interestingly enough, we were going through this lecture with we were going through the last lecture with Bill, and in the middle of it, he said, "Oh, he's hammer hanging. Like we won't have time to go into that. That's a little bit detailed. Process could be a whole lecture on its own." And then, of course, conveniently enough, the next lecture that we had in line was Chris Brown, and he was going to talk about hanging hammers. So I'll pop that one up. We'll check out a few short clips from that and see what kind of info we got out of Chris. He had a lot of great pre-recorded video footage that he could use to walk us through his process of hanging hammers, and also showing us how he uses GrandWorks action stations to optimize the type of work he does. So I got a couple of things. Now I'm thinking about it, we might have time for me to show you all the samples I have, but let me get to this next one, and maybe we can fit in all these samples. All right, let's go to Chris. So Chris's class is on hammer hanging, two-tiered boring, one distance for base hammers and another for treble hammers, unnecessarily complicates and compromises grand regulating. Since the cooling of cast iron plates traditionally warps them, string heights in the finished pianos often bow upward in the middle, creating discrepancies that can have problematic regulating consequences. With an accurate bench setup, bedding as in the piano, and strike provided by a regulating rack, custom board hammers can be hung vertically at strike, maximizing power repetition and clarity of tone. Live talk through over silent video and Q&A in this session. And I'll give a quick intro of Chris, and then I'll hand it over to him. So Chris is an RPT and proprietor of GrandWorks tools. He started his career as a piano technician in 1977. He's one of the leading piano technicians who have mastered a number of skills: concert tuning, rebuilding, and teaching, etc. He is also a college technician, private customer piano care provider, as well as a designer, engineer, and manufacturer. So we're very pleased to have you here with us today, Chris, and excited to dive into your presentation.
Thank you. So this problem of the warp plate is just sort of hidden away in a reality that we occasionally bump into if it's extreme and otherwise largely ignore, as have piano manufacturers mostly. So take the Steinway company, for instance. They have a two-tiered bore system, and it's gauged on note number 1 and note 88. And if you're replacing hammers, you face this quandary of exactly what the bore distance should be, and you tend to measure at those ends. But the problem is that in the middle of the piano, the string heights are relatively higher.
Looking good.
Okay. So this is, I'm going to pause here and take a look at the hammers that were on this piano. There's a sample one way down at the end, and a sample one, a couple of sample ones in the foreground, but the rest are what I inherited. We're going to go around a corner here so you can see this a little more closely. Clearly, untrustworthy information is embedded in these hammers, both in terms of their bore length, how far out the shanks they were hung. So I needed to take samples. Also, there were clear and severe geometry problems in the action that, there isn't enough space here to go into, but the geometry was entirely off. And it had a spread of 115 millimeters, as opposed to a standard Steinway spread of 112. In the end, I ended up with 113. and that actually worked quite well. But it's very important. It's important anyway to do samples and find out what your intended outcome is going to play like. And for that, you need your samples to be well regulated through aftertouch. Okay, so I have a sheet that I kind of fill out for myself. I don't know why this is staying up here. Get out of my way so I can see. I can't see my own thing. Anyway, there are measurements from the
I
top.
think if you actually move your cursor off of it, then it might go away. It might pop away for a minute. Or click.
Is watch later gets rid of that, or does it?
Nah, no, that's just going to stay there. But maybe if you click on the video briefly and activate it, it'll.
Okay, I went past my thing. Okay, so anyway, I take a bunch of measurements, and the measurements at the top are from the top of the templates of my regulating rack. And the templates are 3 inches tall. And so, there, now I can see it. So note number 1, 5 inches was the measurement from the top, which would give a hammer length of 3 inches. So what I do is deduct the 3 inches of the template from the 5 inches of the total measurement to get the bore distance of 2 inches. So anyway, I'm putting this on the shank. Another way to do it, which you'll see later on, is to just put it in the bore hole. But anyway, I'm taking up the slack so that I can have a firm sample. It actually works better putting it in the bore hole than putting it on the shank. Okay, another interesting thing about this is the hammers were 5 1/4 inches out their shanks, which is longer than usual. Usually it's 5 1/8 or 5 1/16, sometimes 5 inches. Okay, what we have here, I'm lifting up my regulating rack, which has been set up with the templates at strike. Here's where I'm talking about the bowing of the plate. And note, see, my fingers here were on 1 and that first, in the first tenor section. Though that note there and this note here have the same string height. So think about what I've just said. A note in the middle of the treble and the first bass note have the same string height. The next thing I'm about to point out is that the first tenor note and the last treble note have the same string height. Now that isn't as radical, but there's a tilt that goes up here and then you can see there's a jog up further and then back down. I discovered in my tweaking of the geometry that there was play in these flanges. And initially I put them all the way back against the little lip that there is on the hammer rail. But in the end, I moved them as far forward as they would go, which is about 1 millimeter forward. Okay, now I went to the piano, and because the original hammers were so terrible, I spaced the hammers in the piano, and now I'm creating a scale stick along the bottom edge of the template so that as I regulate, I've got a place to come back to.
A question here from Bill Monroe, always WNG parts, question mark.
I really like them. No, I I work a lot with other parts, and in my career I have. But the WNG parts are stable. In terms of the shanks, they have the same stiffness throughout, as opposed to wood, which varies a lot. In the case of upright shanks, you shank the hammer and you mark where the grain goes. And so your grain can be in the right direction for all of your hammers. But in the case of a grand, ironically, you get what you get. And they've cut them out of fletches of wood, and the grain is acceptable, up to like 45 degrees in either direction. So you have different grain disposition, you have different grain width, and the flexibility of those shanks varies a lot.
Cool. So there you go, a little bit of sampling of Chris Brown's lecture. Again, it's probably not obvious where I made the cuts, just kind of, I didn't do any sort of transitions, but if it didn't quite make logical sense, just because I'm sort of snipping between interesting parts of the lecture. But just to give you an overview, again, he goes into great detail on the process that he goes through to make sure the hammer hanging gets done appropriately. He has a lot of good insights, and of course he shares how he does that, using the structure of the tools that he's created, the Grand Workstation as well. But yeah, thought it was very thorough and really useful information. At this point, I'll maybe just pause a second in case anybody had any questions. I know I've been talking quite a bit and popping these up there. I just wanted to get through some of the stuff. But anybody had any questions or thoughts about everything I put together so far? And if not, I'll probably just jump on to the next one. Okay, cool. Yeah, and if you do have any questions or comments or thoughts, feel free to put them in the chat. And next time I come up for air, I will. But I'd love to kind of give you all a little bit more exposure to the stuff that we had in the queue yesterday. And later, if we have time, I'll show you some bonus material that will come up for anybody that's signing up for the larger packages, some of the bonus material we have on hand as well. So give me a second. So the next guest we had was Randy Potter. I was excited about this because Randy's icon of the industry, and we haven't really got a chance to get her involved in piano technicians masterclasses, Piano Tech Radio Hour yet. So she gave a lecture on tuning techniques, and this will speak for itself, I suppose. And if not, I'll jump in and give him some more details afterwards. So without further ado, here's that one. I don't know. I guess if there was a Mount Rushmore of piano technology, it'd probably be on it, right? Randy Sue Potter here. And I'll give a quick bio, and then I'll just hand it over to her, and she can take it away. And what we'll do is during this session, again, if you have questions or comments, you can put them in the chat, and I'll communicate them so we can make those questions answered easily. So in brief, Randy Potter is a world-renowned piano technician and the founder of the Randy Potter School of Piano Technology. So for over 30 years, Randy has offered quality instruction through her complete correspondence home study course for beginning and intermediate students in piano tuning, repairing, regulating, voicing, apprentice training, and business practices. And I'll let her take it from here, and we'll have a wonderful session. Is this your piano store as well?
Thank you, Ethan. This is Ball and Gordon Pianos. It's owned by Marty Gordon, who is the importer for Perzina pianos, and we're kind of in front of this big Perzina here because it's a good place to film from. Marty isn't here today, but her sister Susie, who works with her in the store, Susie Long, is here, and she's my videographer today. So thank you, Susie, for agreeing. And we've had to we've moved some things around the store to make this easy. My topic today is tuning tips, tricks, and tools. There's really not any tricks to tuning, and there's just techniques. So it's tips, techniques, and tools. And I'm going to show you some techniques today that maybe some of you hadn't heard of or hadn't seen before. I'm going to show you some tools that I think you'll like, all the way from some basic tools through the tools that I use. But I'm going to show you my favorite mute for vertical pianos. This one's white, happens to be older. This one's blue. It doesn't even look like a mute. I'm going to show you how to use them a little later. They're called Pap Mutes, P-A-P-P. Mr. Pap, a Brit, invented these, and they look like this. This is the carrying case, and this is the mute. I don't know, Marty, Susie, if you can get in close on that. Okay, but they're like a long scissor. This is called a C hammer because you can see it looks like there, capital C. And this is invented by Dan Levitan. And this is probably the only new development in tuning hammers in the last 40 years. And it's actually amazing. I'm going to demonstrate it. And that's what these Pap Mutes are for. And can you see down in here, Susie? Right down here.
Yeah, we're getting, oh yeah, there you
Super.
go. Beautiful.
Okay.
So you set it on either side of the string, kind of just like a
Right.
mute. Yeah.
Right. So there I'm tune the center string, right? Because I've seen tuners over the years insert their felt strip mutes inappropriately. Wrong. Can I use the word wrong? Okay. My temperament is from F33 up to A49, which instead of being 13 notes of an A to A temperament, it's 17 notes. It's a tenth, an octave and a third. Now, you've noticed that all the dampers are up, right? Because I've depressed the sustain pedal. I'm sorry, sustain pedal. You can go see your therapist later if you're still depressed. There aren't very many good piano tuning jokes.
Hey,
As a matter of fact, there's only
be careful
three.
with that.
There's only three, and that wasn't one of them. Okay, when you're up here at the end of the piano, and there's a wall right here. How many clients have a wall right here? Too many. And you can't go around and tune with a standard tuning hammer, and you can't use a standard tuning hammer this way, and you can't use a standard tuning hammer this way unless you're me. 7% of the U.S. population is left-handed.
Well, yeah, it was really great to have you, Randy, especially for the first time joining us in any of our content. It's been a long time coming, so glad to have you join us. And we'll hope to see some more of you in the future. So I will end this session. We'll have a break here for about an hour, and then we'll come back and we'll learn about AI in Cybertuner. All right. Yeah, that one was pretty fun. Let me see here. Got a couple comments here. Oh, comment from Josh. You can also use single paps in the middle, and it opens to mute the two outside strings. Yes. Yeah. And, that lecture I found pretty useful. It's interesting. I feel like I've come across, so she went through a bunch of different hammers, mutes, techniques for getting through a tuning, what to, specific trouble points that people get into and how she deals with them. So, there's some things that I already knew. And then there are some things that it was really useful to have someone just give an example of, here's exactly what I do and here's how I do it. And it's kind of one of those things. We usually do a little bit more advanced content in Piano Technicians Master Classes, but I think this would be a great lecture for somebody, getting started in tuning who just wants to be exposed to all the different tools Because to be honest, you know, you can suffer for a lot of years as a piano tuner. I'm talking like 5 years, maybe even 10, until you discover like a tool that makes your life easier. And so, or a technique. And so that's how I would explain some of the tools and techniques that she shared in that lecture. Very useful things. If you know them, okay, you know it, that's great. But if you haven't discovered it yet, it could be really valuable and change a lot of things for you. Okay, great. So I will pop into the next lecture. And that one I gave a prelude to at the end of the last sample. And that is our Cybertuner lecture. And so that was led by both Carl Lieberman and Dean Rayburn. And they talked about some of the more advanced and experimental things that they're doing with Cybertuners. Let me get that one loaded up. And I'll close this other one. And we'll get going on that. Enjoy.
And, we're not trying to, this is not a sales thing or anything like that. It's informational. We want you basically to know what Cybertuner is doing, how it thinks, and why it works the way it does. Anything else to add to that, Dean?
Well, the first thing we're going to cover is we're going to pitch raising, changing the pitch, and pure 12s. Which one shall we do first?
So if you guys would look at this chart here, this is on a Yamaha C3. And for instance, this is how we overshoot the notes. You'll notice the lowest notes, we don't overpull very much. A lot of the bass we overpull by about 12%. And that's 12% of how far away each individual note was from our target. So it's a different amount on every note. Even though the percent is the same, the actual amount of overpull is different on every single note. And you'll notice as we go over the break, look around notes 25, 26, 27, 28, across the break, there's some weird stuff going on there. And we're taking into account the voids on the bridge underneath the struts. And so the pre-drop and the post-drop on these notes is different because there's a space on the bridge where normally you'd be having the next note doing something, but underneath the strut, there's nothing.
Yes. Okay. So back to Chameleon. So when you record, this is Chameleon where you record the tuning. We take 5 or 6 samples there. But after you record that tuning, Cybertuner's usually going to know how big that piano is. In some cases, when it's really a big piano, it thinks it's a big piano, it's really low in harmonicity, it's going to ask you this question, and then you just tell it. You tell it whether it's a 6'7" grand or a 9-foot grand or even a big Bosey with the extra notes. So and that's one of the ways that the combination of the inharmonicity that it detects from the piano and then your answer to that question, that's how it knows how big the piano is. Those two pieces of info cues it in to what kind of overpull and a number of other things. Yeah, this is if you're a Cybertuner user, this is under both pitch raise and smart tune mode, have a little window. And if you turn on show advanced controls, that little button that I'm just hitting right there, advanced, you can adjust this too. So normally the overpull is adjusted for the average tuner, who happens to be me for some strange reason. I adjust my overpull to 0. For some odd reason, Cybertuner adjusted at 0 works perfectly for me, and turns out most are beta testers too. So, but we realize that the amount of overpull you need for both pitch lowering and pitch raising isn't the same for every piano tuner, and the reason is mostly because of tuning technique. It doesn't mean my tuning technique's perfect or correct. It just means that they're different. Different piano tuners, they hit the note harder. They need more overpull or less overpull. They set the pins and strings. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. It depends. All those things add up to needing a little more overpull, a little less overpull, and you can adjust that in Cybertuner up just like I'm doing there. It's not uncommon to want to adjust that up for some tuners, And then what you do is just hit save, and that saves that for until you change it again. It'll adjust all your overpulls up 2 percentage points. So we're going to go and actually calculate. Assuming that I recorded all those notes, I'm going to calculate, and then AI is going to give us some feedback as to what it did. It already calculated the tuning. It already went through 35 iterations in the time that it took to display the screen. It went through 35 iterations. It found the worst notes variance at the top. The most interesting here was the greatest improvement was note A sharp 2, and that was almost 3 cents. It improved one of the notes over the chameleon tuning. It takes a chameleon tuning you've already calculated, and it improves that as much as it can until it can't improve it anymore. The limit is about 0.1 cents. Once it can't improve it any more than 0.1 cents, it stops iterating. So, and then you can see down below number of oral iterations to reach balance. It was 35. It has 111 is the maximum.
So so one of the things you're seeing here, it's taking the highest bass note, A sharp 2, and it's making it sharper. Mm-hmm. What's going on?
I'm going to show a couple other tuning, a couple other pianos, and Carl loves seeing those smooth graphs, but I keep telling Carl what really counts is not that the smooth graphs are visually going up nice and perfect. What really counts is if your ears hear the progressions to be correct. So those little outliers, I call them, are not mistakes that AI is doing. They're corrections. But one of the most interesting things we're learning is experimenting with this new technology that we're working on is this is a good example. This is a really nice Siler piano. It's really well scaled, and look at the graph. AI was not able to improve it very much. Those improvements are something like 0.5 cent. Those are barely discernible. And what that's telling me is Chameleon's really doing a great job on really good pianos. They're excellent tunings, and you don't have to really worry about it. Where AI mode is really going to earn its keep is on those middle of the road pianos, small grands, where they're challenging scales, or you can spend 5 or 6 or 7 minutes recording those extra notes, hit AI calculate, and it's going to correct all those notes that are crazy across the break, for instance. That's where it's going to earn its keep.
All right, so you have a little sampling of that Cybertuner lecture. And again, I thought that was really, really useful content. You're seeing, if you missed it, then you're getting the sort of cliff notes on it. But if you appreciate this stuff, then you're probably, there's a lot more that you maybe missed, and there's a chance to kind of sign up for it and get the recordings, or if you want individual recordings or things like that. I don't know if we've posted the pages for those yet, but let me know and I'll make sure you're signed up to get one of those. If there's no questions at this point, I'll probably go on to a bonus lecture that we have. And that this will be, actually, it's pre-recorded, but it'll be airing at a later date. So you can get a sense of some of the kind of fun stuff that we're doing on the side. And I'm just going to bring up the convention schedule for later so I can give you some more info on that. And again, like let's say today, I don't see who was at the convention sessions versus who wasn't, but if for some reason you're kind of you're interested in getting involved and you want to attend the rest of the sessions, send me a note here in the chat or send me an email, and I'll see if I can't get you a discount code for being on this call today. So just send me a message and we'll set you up with something to make a little bonus for hanging out with us on Labor Day weekend on this beautiful Saturday. But yeah, let me pop up. So the next thing I'm going to show you, I'm actually just still in the process of making the edits. So I'll show you it right out of my editing software. But Ciano Dominguez, incredible Latin jazz piano player out of Spain. We've actually had him on Radio Hour once, maybe twice. And what he does is he takes the flamenco music of his home country of Spain, His father was actually a famous, very prolific flamenco guitarist. And so Ciano grew up with that flamenco music, mostly learning it on guitar, but then got involved in piano and started integrating all of this. And then there was an army base, by his house. And so he started listening to the American radio station and got influenced by jazz. So this very interesting mix of musical influences. He integrates jazz and flamenco music, but also all other types of stuff, rock and roll and fusion music and classical music. Very, very fine musician. I'm not sure if I said in the intro, but he's been nominated for several Grammys, won a Grammy. Really cool guy. And for this session, I got him to record. We got to record remotely so that we have a really good piano sound on this one. You'll be able to tell that when I play this through, I think. All right, so let me load that up here on my end. And set it towards the beginning. And I'll share. Oh, I had a little comment here. Okay, cool. I got a couple messages here. Great. I'll reply to those. Okay, awesome. Here we go. Let's share. Perfect. Yeah, a little sample of a lecture with Ciano Dominguez. Of him, quite an impressive career. And he's going to talk to us a bit about how he mixes jazz, piano, and flamenco music. A bit about Ciano. He has 3 Grammy nominations and has won a Latin Grammy for the music of the film Calle 54. And this is throughout his 40 plus years of stage performance experience. As a native of Spain, his works are an ingenious and unique combination of jazz and flamenco music that never cease to leave their mark in the minds of the audience. Along with his recording and performing career, he has also shared his expertise through seminars, masterclasses, and taught at Juilliard, the Taller de Música in Barcelona, and other institutions. And so along those lines, you've given masterclasses at universities and with private students, and we thought we'd try to see if we can remotely bring this a bit of this masterclass experience to the digital world. You'll talk a little bit, about your experiences and the way about music. But maybe a good place to start is we were speaking just before this about, why it is that you play flamenco music, and it just has to do with where you come from, right? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, hello everyone. I'm glad to be here with you, Ethan, doing this shattering, musical shattering. For me, it's so interesting always to making this kind of thing. So yes, I was born in Cádiz, and Cádiz is the land of the flamenco, but because I consider myself like not exactly a jazz musician, but yes, a musician who improvise all the time. So if we are playing 4/4, and you want to put the rhythm of Bulgaria into this 4/4, you have to think the division will be 1 bar 4/4 will be 2 bars of 3/4. So that means that when you are playing tan 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 pam pam, you are playing tan can pan tan can tan pan tan 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 tan. It's easy, no, to understand. It's not so. If you can apply, you can to the music. You see, you can play. The same.
Just going to pause that for a second. The software is making it hang up a little bit here. See if we can get a better sound on that.
You see, it's the I am still playing the same shape, the same form, but my thoughts about the reading is completely different.
Again, I'll pause it. The video audio is hanging up here in the editor.
So you can play wherever, any song, if you got this idea and you are clear with that.
All right, so there's a sample of Ciano's lecture, and then there's one more I didn't get a chance that I edited a little bit, and let's see here. And yeah, one that I had that I wanted to share, but I didn't get the edit in time was Frederick Chu. Frederick Chu, a fine classical pianist. He came in and gave us some insights on how he thinks about nuances of pedaling, like pretty much no one else does, and gave a really great lecture on that. So I hope you enjoyed this little sampling. Really cool stuff. Really an honor and a privilege to be able to work with these fine technicians and musicians, and of course everybody that's attending, super intelligent and artisan piano technicians that are participating in all this stuff. So thanks much for taking a look at what it is. I hope you want to get involved. And like I said, I think we really didn't get a chance to share as much ahead of time about what it's going to be like. But I think people that have been all involved with us before, took it on faith, and signed up early. And I think they'd be happy that they got in on the game. And sorry that it's a little bit uncertain, not exactly like your typical PTG convention. But again, we try to bring you some of the coolest and most advanced stuff, and try to tweak it so you get some really good content out of these sessions. What's coming up for next week? Next Friday, Sally Phillips. She's going to talk about prepping new pianos and refurbished, basically rebuilt pianos. Kind of what are the things you need to watch out for with that. Again, Sally is a pinnacle of piano technicians, so I guarantee you'll learn something that you never thought of before in that domain. Leo Holder's going to join us. He does piano appraisals. I know a lot of us struggle with, how do I really do an appraisal? Like, am I qualified? Is there some special certification I need? Leo's the guy that will give us great information on that and help guide us in the right direction. We're going to have Tom Strange of the Siegel Music Museum out there in Georgia. He's going to talk about some more vintage antique piano styles and talk to us about sort of the evolution of those. Ken Eshte is going to come in and give a lecture on some of his expertise, in the piano rebuilding domain. The following week, we're going to have Rayburn Piano Works. We're going to have Alan Eder. We're going to have Wayne Ferguson. And just to make you aware, I'm in talks with some other folks that maybe even join for some other content on those next 2 weeks. And as I said before, it looks like we're going to have another session. I'll give details later that will be included. So anybody that signed up already, didn't even know about it, will be included in this. And anybody that signs up now will be included. We'll have another session. It will be on Saturday, the 25th of September. And that's going to be pretty incredible with some really great international piano technicians. And it'll be a longer session. If all goes through in solidifying that, we'll have a session. It'll be probably up to 3 or 4 hours of content by just one lecture topic. So it'll be really, really in-depth stuff. So like I said, if you're here and you're interested and you're not signed up yet, send me a little note or send me an email. See if I can't get you a special code for being present today and sharing time with us. And and if other than that, I guess we'll see you next week. And it looks like that Saturday on the 25th and the Saturday before that, the 18th, we'll probably be doing something where maybe a portion of the lecture, it might overlap with radio hour. So there might be some sort of hybrid radio hour session for those last 2 Saturdays in September. Okay. Any last questions or comments from anybody there? Okay, cool. Well, thanks for joining us again, and really appreciate you all for being here. Hope you have a wonderful week. Enjoy the last, remaining warm days before we get into this fall season. Okay, talk to you later.